Hi everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel German with Ajla, where I provide you with practical German lessons with a strong focus on clear and easy grammar. In today's lesson, I want to talk to you about a really important topic, especially for all of you beginners out there. So if you are just getting started with learning German, make this your first lesson. Definitely start here. Today, I want to talk to you about the 3 German verb types, which are weak verbs, strong verbs, and mixed verbs. And this is one of those core lessons, and trust me when I say this, once you truly understand the 3 verb types, you are left with such a great foundation to build on. Before we start, if you are learning German, and especially if you are struggling with grammar, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any new lessons. Also, if you would like to work with me one-on-one, feel free to reach out to me. My email is listed down below and I'm really looking forward to your message. Okay, so now that everything is out of the way, I hope that you are ready because the lesson is starting now. So in German, we have 3 different verb types. These are weak verbs, strong verbs, and mixed verbs. But what actually makes the difference between those verb types? The difference comes down to the conjugation of the verb. The conjugation is the first term that we will be focusing on, and I want to write this term down so that you can see it. So if you are not familiar with the term conjugation, let's focus on it for a second. So what is conjugation? Conjugation basically means changing a verb. So whenever we are making any changes to a verb, we are basically conjugating the verb. Okay, so let's write this down. Conjugation means changing the verb. Okay, and the process of conjugation is really important because it is giving us crucial information about the verb, about the person, the number, and the tense of the verb. So for example, it is telling us if the verb is used in first person or second person, if the verb is in singular or in plural, and if the verb is in present tense or, for example, in the past tense. On A1, we are mainly focusing on verbs in the present tense, and that's why we have to speak about personal pronouns, because on A1, without personal pronouns, you will not be able to conjugate verbs. So if you are not familiar with personal pronouns, please don't skip out on this part because we will need it in order to understand how the verb types work. In German, we call them Personalpronomen, and in English, of course, personal pronouns. So in German, just like in English, we have different personal pronouns for singular and for plural. In singular, we have 3 persons, just like in plural. So let's focus on singular first. First person singular would be ich, which means I, ich. Second person singular is du, you as a single person, du. Third person singular, sie, es. He, she, it. Sie, es. Let's move on to plural. First person plural, wir, which means we, wir. Second person plural, ihr, which means you. But please be careful, you not as a single person, but you as a group. So if you want to say you all, if you are speaking to a group, then you would use this person, ihr. And the third person plural, also a bit tricky, sie, meaning they, or you formal. So please pay attention to this part so that you will not get this wrong afterwards. Sie, which is written with a small letter s, means they. Sie, they. But sie, written with the big letter S, means you formal. Sie, you formal. You formal is something that we don't really have in English, but in German we actually use it quite a lot. You formal is, for example, used in professional environments, when speaking to your colleagues, or when you are speaking to persons that you don't really know. So you see, the you formal actually creates some kind of distance between you and the person that you are speaking with. So it is really, really useful. Now that we understand the personal pronouns, we want to repeat them, practice them together, and please feel free to repeat after me. This is something that I always encourage. Okay, let's start. Ich, du, er, sie, es. Wir, ihr, sie, sie. Amazing. Let's go again. Ich, du, er, sie, es. Wir, ihr, sie, sie. Amazing job. Now you learned the personal pronouns and now you are ready to conjugate verbs and actually learn the different verb types. So let's move on. Moving on to the first verb group that we want to cover, weak or regular verbs. In German, we call them schwache oder regelmäßige Verben. Schwache oder regelmäßige Verben, weak or regular verbs. Before we can speak about this verb type, first I want to introduce to you another term which is really important in this context. This is the verb stem. The verb stem. What is the verb stem? This is basically the foundation of a verb. So every verb has its verb stem. The question is now how to get to the verb stem. So in order to get to the verb stem, we are starting off with the infinitive form of a verb. The infinitive form is the form of the verb before making any changes to it, so before conjugating it. So if a verb is not conjugated, then it is in infinitive. I will explain this using the German verb spielen, which means to play. The verb spielen is in infinitive. It has the infinitive ending n. It is not conjugated yet. Now, by removing the infinitive ending n, I am left with Spiel. And Spiel is the verb stem, the base or the foundation of the verb, however you want to call it. So in conclusion, the infinitive of a verb consists of the verb stem and the infinitive ending. Once you remove the infinitive ending, you are left with the verb stem. Amazing, so now we understand what a verb stem is, and we can move on to explaining the concept of a weak verb. A weak verb equals weak changes. This means as we are conjugating the verb, it is basically changing just a little bit. This means that the base of the verb stem, will always remain the same. So weak or regular verbs never have a change in their verb stem. The only thing that is changing are the endings that we are attaching to the verb stem, but everything else stays the same. So let me show you how this looks in the conjugation in the present tense using the verb spielen, to play. So now we are conjugating the verb and we are starting with the first person singular. Ich spiele, I play. Du spielst, you play. Er, sie, es spielt, he, she, it plays. Wir spielen, we play. Ihr spielt, you play in terms of you all. Und sie spielen, they play, or you play. Remember, you formal. So let's repeat in German. Ich spiele, du spielst, er, sie, es spielt. Wir spielen, ihr spielt, sie spielen. Let's go one more time, and this time together. Okay, you ready? Let's go. Ich spiele, du spielst, er, sie, es spielt. Wir spielen, ihr spielt, sie spielen. Great job. Okay, so now let's analyze this conjugation. If you are looking at the forms of the verb in different persons, you will be able to conclude that the verb stem, the base of the verb, always stays the same. So in every person, the verb stem is spiel, spiel, spiel. The verb stem is always the same, only the endings are different. So for example, in the first person, we are using the ending e, first person singular. In the second person singular, we are using st, and so on. What is really cool in German is that these endings are the same in every person. Sometimes we have exceptions, like when speaking about special work groups, but usually these endings are the same. So you can just learn them by heart, like e, st, t, n, t, n. E, st, t, n, t, n. And there you go. This is how the verb spielen looks in the present tense. As I said, on A1 we mainly focus on the present tense. But I want to show you one more thing that you don't necessarily have to remember right now, but it's gonna be important for later on. Every verb in German has its three basic forms, consisting of the infinitive and two forms in the past. So you can see the three basic forms for the verb spielen here: spielen, spielte und hat gespielt. Spielen is our infinitive and means to play. The second form, spielte, it basically means played, and it is similar to the English simple past. So spielte, played, and the third form would be hat gespielt, so something like the present perfect in English. Hat gespielt, has played. Spielen, spielte, hat gespielt, to play, played, has played. And looking at those three forms, we can see even here that the verb stem, the foundation of the verb, never shows any changes, only the endings are changing, even in the past. So for the simple past in German Präteritum, we are using the ending T spielte, and for the present perfect in German Perfekt, we are using the ending T, hat gespielt. And I also want to mention that weak verbs always have the same endings in present and in past. So here you can see the endings T and T in the past, and whenever we are using weak verbs in those tenses, we will be using those endings as well. So for example, if you take the verb kaufen, to buy, it would act the same way. For example, kaufen, kaufte, hat gekauft. Or if you would use the verb machen, also a weak verb, it means to do or to make. Again, it would act the same way. Machen, machte und hat gemacht. But as I said, you don't have to remember this right now, but it is useful to know so that you have a good overview of the weak verbs. Okay, so now let's move on to some examples so that we can see where the verb is positioned in sentences. And again, feel free to repeat after me. Let's practice together. You got this. Okay, let's start. Ich spiele Volleyball. I play volleyball. Ich spiele Volleyball. Spielst du Schach? Are you playing chess? Spielst du Schach? Er spielt Klavier. He is playing the piano. Er spielt Klavier. Sie hat Gitarre gespielt. She has played the guitar. Sie hat Gitarre gespielt. Okay, so you can see the first three examples are in the present tense. Before we move on, I want to give you one more important information about verbs in German, and please listen to me because this is so important. So, in a German sentence, you can only have one conjugated verb. I will repeat this. This is the golden rule, guys and girls. In a German sentence, you can only have one conjugated, one changed verb. You can have many verbs, but only one will be conjugated. The other verbs that might appear in your sentence will therefore be in non-changeable forms that you will learn later on A1 and higher levels. On A1, we usually see sentences with one or maximum two verbs. So what is important to know? In a declarative sentence like Ich spiele Volleyball, the verb has to be in the second position. When I say verb, I mean conjugated verb, okay? The conjugated verb has to take the second spot. Ich spiele Volleyball. Also make sure not to divide the subject from the verb ich. The subject and the verb always have to be next to each other. The conjugated verb will also come in the second position in questions that start with a question word. For example, was spielst du? So, what do you play? Was spielst du? Again, spielst, so the conjugated verb, will be in the second spot. But we do have some exceptions. For example, if we are dealing with a yes or no question, for example, spielst du Schach? Are you playing chess? Yes or no? Spielst du Schach? The conjugated verb will take the first position. Really important. So in a yes, no question, the verb always comes first. Again, I mean the conjugated verb. And the last example is also pretty interesting. This example is actually in the past tense in the German perfect, also perfect. You don't have to know this very well as a beginner. I'm just demonstrating. Here we actually have two verbs. Sie hat Gitarre gespielt. She has played the guitar. Sie hat Gitarre gespielt, and this is one of those situations where you are having two verbs. But remember, only one verb will be conjugated. In this situation, it is the helping verb hat. Has. So this verb gets conjugated. Ich habe, du hast, er, sie, es hat, and so on. And we are pairing it with a non-changeable form, gespielt, played. Gespielt does not have the ability to change. It is always gespielt. So this is a good example that you can have more verbs in your sentence, but only one will be conjugated. Remember, in declarative sentences, in questions with a question word, the verb has to be at the second position. Okay, so guys, I think this is enough. Let's conclude this chapter here and move on to strong verbs. And of course, if something is left unclear, if you are still dealing with some questions, feel free to leave me a comment. I will do my best to answer your question and to help you understand better. I hope that you are doing well and that you still have some energy left for our next chapter, which are strong or irregular verbs. To be honest, the explanation of the weak verbs was kind of exhausting for me. I had to take a little break to refresh a little bit, but now I'm good. I hope you are as well. If you do feel the need to take a break, definitely do so. But if not, let's continue with our next chapter, the strong or irregular verbs. In German, we call them starke oder unregelmäßige Verben. Starke oder unregelmäßige Verben. So we already said a weak verb equals weak changes. On the other hand, a strong verb equals strong changes. This is really important to remember because this is the main difference. So this means in a strong verb, not only the endings are changing, but the verb stem is changing as well. Okay, and this is different from weak verbs. In weak verbs, we actually never see a change of the stem. It's just not happening. But with strong verbs, the stem does change. But here is the trick. Strong verbs, unlike weak verbs, are really unpredictable. This means strong verbs will have a change in their stem, but it's hard to know when. There's no clear pattern. The change can happen in the present tense, in the past tense, or in both. Okay, so there is no solution for every strong verb. You have to learn them one by one. Usually pretty unpopular when students hear that they have to learn something by heart. And that there's no actual pattern, but this is just how it is for the strong or irregular verbs. They work the same way in English, but listen, I have good news for you. I actually made a list of the most important strong verbs in German for the level A1. You can find the document in the description down below. It is completely free, so I would encourage you to download this list and to get started with learning the strong verbs. But for now, let's take a look at an example. Let's take a look at the strong verb tragen. Tragen actually means to wear, but it can also mean to carry. So it can have two different meanings. Tragen, to wear or to carry. Again, we are starting off with the infinitive form, which is tragen, and by removing the ending n, we can see the verb stem. The verb stem is trag. So now let's see what will happen to the verb stem as we are conjugating the verb. Ich trage, I wear. Du trägst, you wear. Sie, es trägt. He, she, it wears. Wir tragen, we wear. Ihr tragt, you wear. In terms of a group, you all wear. And sie tragen, so they wear or you wear, you in a formal way. Okay, so now let's repeat the conjugation one more time. We can do it together, of course. So let's go. Ich trage, du trägst, sie, es trägt. Wir tragen, ihr tragt, sie tragen. What is happening in this conjugation? We can see in the second and third person singular, in du and sie, es, there is a change happening in the verb stem. So it's not trag anymore, now it's träg. And this is really important to remember. If a change is happening in a strong verb in a present tense, the change will be present in the second and third person singular. So in present tense, we will see the change always in du und sie, es. And these changes can be different. So here we have this change from a normal A to A with umlaut, we say in German. Those are the two dots. But the changes can also look different. For example, from E to E and so on. Now, when we take a look at the three basic forms, and remember, these are the infinitive, the simple past, and the present perfect, we can see that the change is also present in the past tense. So, for example, tragen, which is to wear, trug, which is wore, and hat getragen, which is has worn. So looking, for example, at the simple past, we can see that here we have another change in the stem, but now a different one. It's not träg, it's trug. So a new change is happening here, and we actually don't have an ending. We just have this new stem. And then in the present perfect, which is just in German perfect, we can see hat getragen, which means that we are coming back to the initial stem, but we are using the ending n. Strong verbs in perfect always have the ending n. It can also look different. It really depends on the verb. So, for example, if we take the verb sprechen, Präteritum, so this simple past, would be sprach. And perfect, so this word in English would be present perfect, hat gesprochen. Sprechen, sprach, hat gesprochen. What is happening here is that we see a change even in the form for the perfect. So sprechen means to speak. Sprach means spoke. Hat gesprochen, has spoken. Sprechen, sprach, hat gesprochen. To speak, spoke, and has spoken. So from this, as I said, you can see that it is really unpredictable and there's no way to know where a change in the stem will happen. All we know is that we can expect a change, but where it will show up is really not possible to predict. You have to learn this using a list of strong verbs. Okay, so now let's move on to some examples. Again, we can say them together. You can repeat them after me. And also pay attention to the verb position. Okay, let's start. Ich trage eine Jacke. I wear, or you can also say, I am wearing a jacket. Ich trage eine Jacke. Trägst du eine Brille? Are you wearing glasses? Trägst du eine Brille? Sie trägt die Kisten alleine. She is carrying the box herself or alone. Sie trägt die Kisten alleine. And one more, this one is in the past tense and perfect. Sie haben die Möbel getragen. They have carried the furniture. Sie haben die Möbel getragen. Okay, so let's repeat what we already have learned. A German sentence can only have one conjugated, one changed verb. In a declarative sentence like Ich trage eine Jacke, I am wearing a jacket, or in a question with a question word, for example, Was trägst du? What are you wearing? The verb has to be in the second position. Was trägst du? Ich trage eine Jacke. Okay, so the conjugated verb always comes second. In a yes-no question, for example, trägst du eine Brille? Are you wearing glasses? Yes or no? Trägst du eine Brille? The conjugated verb always comes first. One more thing, we also learned that your sentence can have many verbs, but only one will be conjugated. The other verbs will be in non-changeable forms. This is something that we see in the past tense, perfekt. For example, Sie haben die Möbel getragen. They have carried the furniture. So haben would be the conjugated verb. This is the one that is changing according to the person, to the pronoun that we are using. Ich habe, du hast, er, sie, es hat, and so on. But the second verb, getragen, is a non-changeable form. Getragen always shows up this way and cannot be changed. Okay, so guys, I think this is everything that you need to know about the strong verbs. And now we really learned so much, but there is one small group left, and these are mixed verbs. So let's take a quick look at them. we have made it to the last verb group, and this is actually a really small group of the mixed verbs. In German, we call them gemischte Verben or mixed verb. And as the name is already suggesting, this is some kind of mix, a combination of weak verbs and strong verbs. Mixed verbs combine grammatical features of weak verbs and strong verbs and form a unique conjugation. So let's see what they are taking from each group. So from weak verbs, they are taking the present tense conjugation and the weak endings. This means as we are conjugating them in the present tense, as you see, for example, here, there will be no change in the stem. So in the present tense, we can see a weak verb stem. Also in past tenses, they will have weak endings. These are endings with T, as we have seen with the weak verbs. But from strong verbs, they take stem changes in the past tense. So this means here stem changes can also happen, but not in the present, only in the past tenses. So you can see this is really a combination. We literally took everything and threw it all together, and then we got those mixed verbs. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. For example, the verb denken, which means to think. Denken, to think. Okay, let's first of all take a look at the conjugation in the present tense. Ich denke, I think. Du denkst, you think. Er, sie, es denkt. He, she, it thinks. Wir denken, we think. Ihr denkt, you all think. Sie, denken, they think, or you in a formal way think. Okay, let's repeat the verb. Ich denke, du denkst, er, sie, es denkt. Wir denken, ihr denkt, sie denken. Very good. One more time. Let's do it together. Ich denke, du denkst, er, sie, es denkt. Wir denken, ihr denkt, sie denken. Alright, very good. Observing the conjugation in the present tense, we can actually see that the verb stem is not changing, just as we see in weak verbs. So the stem is always the same. In this case, the stem is denk. So denk in every person for singular and plural, and of course only the endings are changing. But if we take a look at the past forms, we will see that changes actually are happening later on. So for example, denken, to think, which is the infinitive, and then we have dachte. Again, this is the simple past, something that is similar to the simple past in English. In German, we call it Präteritum, and we would translate this as thought. So let's write this down. Thought. And the present perfect, or in German we just say perfekt, hat gedacht, has thought. So to think, thought, has thought, denken, dachte, hat gedacht. You can see in this Präteritum form, we actually experience or the verb experiences, and we together with the verb, a change in the stem. So it's not denk anymore, now it's dach. Denken, dachte, and this change persists even in perfect tense, so in the other form for past, hat gedacht. But on the other hand, in the past forms, the verb still has weak endings as we see them with weak verbs. So dachte, ending t, und hat gedacht, ending t for perfect. Yeah, so this is the combination we are dealing with here. I want to show you another example quickly. Bringen, brachte, hat gebracht, which means to bring. So bringen is the infinitive form. Brachte, again, this is the Präteritum in German, comparable to the past simple in English, brought. Und hat gebracht, the perfect in German, comparable to the present perfect in English, has brought. Okay, so bringen, brachte, hat gebracht, to bring, brought, and has brought. Bringen, brachte, hat gebracht. For example, looking at the present tense, there will be no changes in the verb stem, so we would conjugate just as we would a weak verb. Ich bringe, du bringst, er, sie, es bringt, wir bringen, ihr bringt und sie bringen. But then later on in the past forms we can see a change happening. Brachte, hat gebracht. But again, the endings in the past forms are weak. So the same as with weak verbs. Okay, so this is how the mixed verbs work. And guys and girls, now I have a little challenge for you. I want you to write me examples in the comments using mixed verbs. This is a really small verb group and I feel it often gets neglected because of its size. So I really want to give it some attention. I want to emphasize them in this lesson. So please write me a sentence in the comments with a mixed verb. I will answer your comments and I will make corrections if needed. If you have any wishes for future videos, so any topics that you would like me to cover, feel free to leave me a comment with your video suggestions. And also, if you enjoyed this lesson, if it was helpful, subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any new lessons. And to everybody, thank you for being here today. I really enjoyed today's lesson. It was really uplifting and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!